Hello, welcome to Ycft. We're back doing some Chucky. I know we haven't finished Friday the 13th yet.
It's coming.
It's coming. We've started watching them again. We're going to do it. It's coming. So it just felt wrong not addressing that, considering we're doing the second part of the Chucky one.
Yeah.
So the first video we did from Child's Play 1 to 3, the Andy Barclay story. Now we're going to do when Chucky changed genres entirely. We're doing 1998's Bride of Chucky and 2004's Seed of Chucky.
Uh-huh.
Now, Bride definitely exists in a post-Scream world.
It sure does.
Horror changed after Scream. Everything needed to be meta.
Everything changed.
And Chucky lent itself so well to being meta. But there's a massive, because of the controversy around Child's Play 3, that, the unwarranted controversy, I think we can all agree. So that was 91, so there was a 7-year gap.
Yes.
But then, because of Columbine, there was obviously a 6-year gap in between Bride and Seed.
Columbine, as I'm learning, it had a huge domino effect on a lot of studio productions, especially horror, because it severely impacted Scream 3. There's a load of other films as well that, particular storylines that writers were envisioning, they had to scrap if it involved anything to do with kids or, high schoolers or any kind of real sort of overt violence, I guess.
Bride is very much reminiscent of Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
Obviously, Chucky, anyone who knows, like growing up, before I watched a single Chucky film, back when I didn't even know they were called Child's Play, all I knew was Chucky. I know the scarred, the stitched up face. He is on this little Lego guy, but obviously you guys aren't going to be able to see that from that distance. But that is the look
the scars are there.
Of Chucky that I always knew, the stitched together one, because he was everywhere in the early 2000s. And that comes from this movie. Obviously, the end of Child's Play 3, he gets put into a massive industrial fire and is sliced to pieces.
Yeah.
Bride, it's directed... What's the name of the director of this one? Because he also directed Freddy vs. Jason.
Ronnie Wu.
I got a soft spot for both of these films and his directing style. Don Mancini obviously returns to write.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to change genres because he found that the more a horror slasher icon appears in the films, the less scary it becomes. So why try and make him scary, and why not lean into the funnier aspects of the character while still being a slasher movie
of it all? Yeah.
In this film, the franchise changes forever. The introduction of Tiffany Valentine,
played immaculately by Jennifer Tilly.
Yes.
Well, hello, Dolly.
God, she's appeared in everything.
How do you even describe Tiffany Valentine? I mean... Yeah,
she is Charles Lee Ray's ex-girlfriend.
Yes.
And she spent the last 10 years trying to track down Chucky so she can bring him back.
So she can bring him back.
So she can get married to him.
Yes, because she believes that the night he was gunned down, he was going to propose to her, because in the shared apartment she found a ring on the mantelpiece. So she's forever held on to that ring, thinking that, how tragic it was that he was killed just before we could get married. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Tiffany.
Yeah. Well, first, because we see... Well, she manages to kill her... So we're going to have minor spoilers for her. I think mainly we're going to talk about a lot of the themes and not too much of the story of both of these films.
Okay.
More the story of this one, but I think the Seed especially is more theme-related. The opening scene, she coerces a cop into getting Chucky's body from evidence. So this shredded up body so she can sew him back together, and that's how we get the great scarred... So again, one thing I love about the Child's Play series is, aside from the remake, it is still one continuous story.
Yeah.
And in this shows how meta goes. In this evidence room, we see a chainsaw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
We see Freddy Krueger's glove. We see Michael Myers' mask. We see a hockey mask. Later in the film, they kill someone with an airbag filled with nails. Pinhead, all over his face. And Chucky even says, "Why does that look so familiar?" Extremely meta. So we've got all the big shots right there.
100%.
Tiffany's first kill, she kills the cop, leading into the iconic title card shot of her walking away, dressed in short leather skirt, rock music playing. Yeah. It's so iconic.
It's so 90s.
It's so 90s. But her iconic kill is with slitting the throat with a nail file. That is how we're introduced to her character.
Yeah.
And she's fantastic.
She is. She's
anyone who
wonderful.
as into the genre might know her as the voice of Bonnie in Family Guy.
Yes.
Which
yeah.
actually, we'll get, like, in a later video, we'll address that again, because that weirdly has become canon in the Chucky universe now.
Yeah, it has actually.
Which is bizarre. This brings in the Voodoo for Dummies book.
Voodoo for Dummies.
Which obviously Dom mentioned he was never a fan of the voodoo aspect of it, but he's just rolling with it.
He had to roll with it. And full credit to the guy for doing that as well.
Yeah,
for not, retconning the whole thing.
Yeah.
He goes with it and he uses it to a major comedic effect in Bride.
Give me the power, I beg of you. Hare Due Dumbledore, give me the power, I beg of you.
So Tiffany has a date come round who she's been trying to coerce into killing someone.
Yeah.
And she kind of uses him to kind of bring Chucky back.
Yeah, he's called Damien, her date.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
The hell'd you get this thing?
Got it from the cops. It's the actual dolphin, those murders. I stitched them together.
You gotta be kidding me.
And I think he's played by one of the Arquette siblings, isn't he? And Damien is like forever trying to impress Tiffany. He comes round pretending that he's killed someone in this really, really gory way, and she realizes that it was just fake.
It was himself in makeup.
Yeah. And it's such a fun sequence. Like, Damien himself is very grungy and very gothic, and we later realise that the guy was actually like a total square.
He was called Howard.
He was called Howard. Yeah, and she has zero time for Howard. She also has never slept with Howard, and he is desperate for that to happen. He's trying and really, really trying to impress her. And then we also he notices, more to the point, that there is a Chucky doll in her little, what do you call it, where she lives, like a little trailer.
Trailer, yeah.
Little
she lives in a
trailer.
trailer park.
And Damien even remarks, like, "Oh, Chucky, he's so 80s."
Pretends to hump him.
Oh god, yeah, he pretends to hump
This
him.
is after she thinks that it's failed.
What a crack.
She actually thinks that the ceremony's failed, the ritual's failed.
Yeah.
So she notices that he's moved.
He
Not
has
long
moved.
after. So she ties him up on the bed, sits Chucky on his chest. This is another reference. We get a reference to The Exorcist because Chucky's head turned around.
Yeah, I love the whole build up to this scene, because like we know, and Tiffany knows, that Chucky has come back, that the voodoo thing was a success, that he's now been resurrected. So we are just waiting for him to reveal himself. But he's sitting on top of Damien, watching Tiffany strip tease, which she's clearly doing for Chucky's benefit. It's not for Damien. She couldn't give a shit about Damien. And then there's close-ups on Chucky's face, like clearly just really enjoying the show. And then finally he reveals himself. Yeah, because Damien says something, doesn't he? Like, Chucky is... He's too small for you, or something like that. You need a big guy.
Head turns around and is like, it's not the size that matters, it's how
you use it. Oh god.
It ain't the size that counts, asshole. It's what you do with it.
Chucky's in full pun mode in this film.
The comedy is like it's turned up a major notch here.
This film seems to split. A lot of people don't like this. Critics didn't like this film.
No.
And a lot of people like it, but it isn't their favourite, and they don't like the direction it takes. But then for others, it's their favourite.
It's their favourite.
The problem is it's so different to the films that have come beforehand. Like Child's Play 2 will always be the pinnacle, but to an extent, almost just as much. I really like Bride.
I love Bride.
So much fun.
I think I would rank it in my top
really
3
creative
of the Chucky films, maybe.
Really creative kills throughout the entire film.
Yeah. I love the comedy. It works for me. But I think we mentioned this as we were watching it fairly recently for this video, is that one of the key differences in this movie is that Chucky has another character that he can bounce off of throughout the film.
Which he's not had.
No.
Other than like Andy as a child.
Andy is the one character in the previous films that he has the most contact with, but like he's a 6-year-old kid, or he's then like a young teenager in the army that doesn't want anything to do with Andy, with Chucky. So he hasn't really had that chance to like spar off of someone. But the genius thing about having Tiffany is that she can bite back just as much, and the dynamic between them is glorious.
Dom Mancini really wanted her for this role, and she almost didn't do it because she thought it sounded a bit silly. And I think it was Gina Conrad, her co-star from Bound, was convinced her to do it, and like who has now also appeared.
Bound plays a big part in like future Chucky storylines. Yeah.
I also love that first conversation when after Chucky's like killed their date and he turns up and just goes, "Hi." And she's like, "Hi." He's like, "How you doing?" "Oh, it's how you been."
Yeah.
It's so cute.
It's so cute.
Hi.
How you been?
Okay. You?
Peachy.
There is instantly something very lovable about Tiffany. I think just right from the off, like the fact that she makes her Swedish meatballs and she says that line. She's like, "You know me, I'll kill anybody, but I'll only sleep with someone I love." So there's like
it's a voice as well.
The voice. I can't even do the voice.
No one can do Jennifer Tilly's voice.
And more crucially as well, I think she becomes even more lovable when she realizes that he never intended to propose to her.
He robbed that ring.
That ring was stolen from a woman that he
5K.
killed. He was gonna pawn it or sell it or whatever. So he had no intention of proposing to her. That sends Tiffany off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, she realizes he's never going to change, so she locks him in like a playpen.
Yeah.
So clearly, because she has like a lot of these things here for a child. I think as soon as she brought him back, got him into a human body.
Yeah.
She intended to start a family with him.
Yeah, she wants him back. For good.
She even goes and gets him a doll to be his bride, like this second doll.
So that doll also is like what she called the Belle doll or
Belle
something
doll,
in
yeah.
future
Belle the Ball.
stories. Yeah. Yes, and Chucky is he's displeased by this turn of events.
You can see where this is going.
Absolutely.
Chucky escapes, and to be honest, I think only recently I've realised like how brilliant the scene actually is. Like, major spoilers right now. Chucky kills Tiffany.
Yes.
And she's in a bowl bath at this point. This trailer is massive, by the way.
It is.
Like, it's definitely big. It's got a TARDIS effect. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Yeah, for sure.
She's in a bowl bath. She's watching Bride of Frankenstein. Thomas, he's not been shy about the fact that there's
Huge
massive influence on it. The Chucky design and everything is based off it. As Chucky, he electrocutes her.
He does.
Wait. No, I've got that wrong. Because he goes to stab her.
She kicks him.
Yeah. And he knocks the telly in and electrocutes her to death.
Yes.
But as she's like being electrocuted and is dying, you see the TV screen of when the bride in The Bride of Frankenstein is just screaming.
It's just screaming.
It's just, it's so poetic.
I never noticed that particular scene is so like evident in the bathtub. But yeah, it's
it plays a part constantly throughout the film. And then he transfers her soul into the doll.
Into the Belle doll.
And she's furious.
Oh, she is livid.
Son of a bitch! What have you done to me?
What the hell did you do to me? Or something like that.
She has a line not too long after. So, well, I always did want us to spend more time together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh God, poor Tiffany. She's so warped. But yeah, so now both of them are trapped as dolls.
Yeah. She has a doll makeover.
Yeah, and obviously at this point in time, both of their main mission is to transfer their souls to get out of the dolls. And this is where we learn that Chucky needs the amulet.
Of Damballa.
All
right. Again, issues I've got with these next few films, they do mess with continuity a little bit. Because apparently now, cause in the previous ones, it was always the first person he reveals himself to.
Yeah.
And to be fair, he has just killed that person in this one. And now apparently he needs the amulet of Damballa that was around his neck the night he died. We know it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because just on the pictures, like, it's been added in. You just got to roll with it.
Got to roll with it.
And apparently it was buried with him. Not in evidence, it was buried with him in Hackensack, yeah.
But there's a continuity error in the film as well because, he was killed in Chicago. Because the first film is set in Chicago, we know that for a fact, and yet at some point in the film over the radio it's mentioned that he was gunned down in Hackensack or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of continuity fuckery going on in the film, but I think that was a genuine accident. But anyway, they need the amulet, and so the mission of the film is to go to his body, open it up, get the amulet back, so then they can transfer their souls into two living people, and they actually have their sights set on two people in particular.
Before, like, we just talk about the gothification of the Belle doll.
Oh!
It's at this point, Tiffany as a doll is
makeover
almost as iconic as Chucky. Like, she
absolutely.
Obviously, she's wearing a wedding dress.
She's wearing a wedding dress, the Belle dress.
Leather jacket over top, little doll docks. She puts a little, like you've put on there, a little beauty mark, dyes her hair, does the eyeliner,
Peroxide
and
blonde.
nails. It's great. You see
Yeah.
Chucky's just like...
Yes. Also, just sidebar, Tiffany just happens to have a tiny little doll-size leather jacket and doll-size boots just hanging around in the trailer for such an occasion. I can let it slide, but it did get a chuckle out of me when I watched it.
I love that whole
It's
sequence.
It's so wonderful.
This is more her movie than Chucky. Well, obviously it's named after. Just the film is called The Bride of Chucky.
The Bride of Chucky, and it's brilliant. Yeah, the makeover is so iconic. The look of Tiffany is iconic. I love it.
Because we have to comment on the characters that they want to transfer their souls into.
Yes.
One of them lives next door to Tiffany, and she rings him. Obviously, she's now a doll, so she can't.
Yeah.
She wants to pay him to take the dolls to the grave.
Yeah.
And it leads to, obviously, the introduction of our main human characters. They are the weakest point of this film.
Yeah, the big subplot of Jesse and Jade. I feel like...
It's Katherine Heigl, isn't it?
It's Katherine Heigl, who I think this is probably one of her first major film roles. And
It's like,
a guy called...
They're fine.
They're okay. Nick Stabile, who plays Jesse. So these are they're a young couple who are clearly like madly in love with each other, but she lives with her guardian or her uncle or something, and he's incredibly overprotective. If you imagine the dad from 10 Things I Hate About You, he's kind of like that, but much more of an arsehole about it.
Because he's the sheriff.
Because he's the sheriff, and he pulls so much weight around, and he gets his other police, guys to like stop them from going to the prom or a dance or whatever it is, and yeah, so they it's kind of meant to be, I guess, like a Romeo and Juliet sort of situation. Yeah. Like they can't be together.
Because they even get another friend who's clearly gay to like act as a boyfriend.
He's
so she can go to the prom.
third wheels.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
he's
so they run away.
David.
They run away together.
He gets
this idea. Somehow he thinks there's Well, you mentioned it's like 500, then 500 at the end.
For delivering the
He's
dolls.
like, oh, we'll start you life together. I can send you to college. Like, what, with a grand?
With a grand, mate.
I know inflation's hit us really hard this year.
Come on now. You've got to rethink that plan. Yeah.
So they
run away together.
Run away to deliver
with
these
the dolls.
And
shit goes
awry because things keep getting in the way that the dolls have to start killing people in order for things to keep moving smoothly.
Yes.
But because things keep happening, each one of them gets very suspicious that it's the other one that's doing it.
Yes, and they basically end up having to go on the run because they're also now the most wanted suspects in all of these killings and disappearances.
One thing I really like, again, why I think the kills are so good in this is like, Chucky instantly wants to go and like stab someone, and she's like, oh, is that welded to your hand? Like, you gotta get, it's the 90s, you gotta get creative.
What the hell? I need the exercise.
Were you born with that knife super glued onto your hand or what?
What are you talking about?
For God's sake, Chucky, drag yourself into the 90s. Stabbings went out with Bundy and Dahmer. You look like Martha Stewart with that thing.
Who the fuck is Martha Stewart?
It's the 90s. Yeah. I love that.
But it's like when he does kill someone, I was like, a classic never goes out of fashion.
Yeah.
So there's multiple sequences of them trying to work out like cool way, like interested in different ways to kill people, and that's. Going back to what you said before, the fact that they can bounce off each other.
And also...
The dolls, they move really well as well.
Oh my god, the puppetry is just like...
I know this was,
incomparable.
at the time, technically the most complicated one to use because there was 2 dolls.
2 dolls? Double the team, double the effort. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, you're saying there that Chucky and Tiffany, they can bounce off each other. If we, the audience, at any point are getting a bit bored with the whole Jessie Jade thing, then at least we also have Chucky and Tiffany commenting on what they see, because they're sitting in the back of this like RV thing, whatever it is, and just watching this love story play out. And you get some like brilliant lines, like Chucky at one point kind of whispers to Tiff, I give him 6 months, 3 if she gains weight. And like just little backs and forths like that, and she's like, she thinks, oh no, they're a lovely couple, like, like where's your sense of romance and whatever you. So we get that, and that adds a lot of fun to the whole subplot.
Yeah, so it's like, whenever you get too sick of them, usually Chucky and Tiffany are also sick of them, and they're...
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know if they were on purposely written this way.
I don't know. I mean, it's... When you have 2 characters like Chucky and Tiffany, any other love story in the film is going to pale by comparison. So I think Mancini probably knew what he was doing there.
The 2 main characters, they end up getting... While weirdly suspicious of each other, they end up just getting married.
They get married.
This leads to like one of the weirdest parts of this movie.
Yeah, this is
but
where
it's
it
also
gets...
so much fun.
It's brilliant.
They're in the honeymoon suite. They get robbed without realizing, and Tiffany's like, nah, she's not having that.
Yes, so she's able to see stuff that the other characters don't.
Yeah, and this other couple they've robbed them. They are on a waterbed with a massive mirror above them, and it's brilliant. This scene is absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Is. Yeah.
And it's a kill that we will see it later on again.
We see it
in the franchise.
reused similarly.
Yeah, the woman looks up and just sees Tiffany just stood there,
like smiling,
just smiling because they've seen the dolls
with
at this
a
point.
champagne bottle in hand.
Yeah, she starts screaming, throws the champagne bottle, shatters the mirror.
And the glass
slices them to pieces.
Impales all of them.
And obviously it's on waterbed, so it's like an explosion.
It's like
of
slow
blood.
motion, and it's Tiffany's just kind of like delighted by what she sees. And then it pans to Chucky.
And he's like,
and then what does he say? He turns to her and he's like, I love you.
I love you.
It's the first time that we've heard him say that.
it's probably the first time he has said it.
It probably, maybe
that
it
kill
is.
is reused in Cult of Chucky. Chucky does that in Cult of Chucky.
Not on a waterbed, but yeah.
Not in a waterbed,
Glass
no, but he does a
shattering.
similar thing, yeah. So
yeah.
he was definitely inspired by
For sure.
Tiffany.
His bride. His
Yeah.
beautiful bride.
And we have doll sex.
Well, it leads to... Well, first of all, we get a proposal.
Yeah.
First of all, we get a proposal of marriage. He's so in awe by what she's done, the sheer creativity of his psychopathic bride, that he proposes to her then and there. They steal the ring off this now decapitated finger from this woman that's just been absolutely impaled. He has to bite the finger to get the ring off. Gives it to Tiffany. It's a bit too big for her tiny little doll hand. She's just over the moon. She's finally getting what she wants. And then that leads to doll sex.
Like, well, you know, I am. Look, she's just crying. She's like, oh, I'm crying. She's like, I wonder if other stuff works.
And that's when we learn
Chucky goes, well, I am anatomically correct.
Correct, and that's how we figure that out.
I am anatomically correct, you know.
Well, the thing is, I don't think the doll is designed to be anatomically correct, but obviously we know as the more they're in the doll, the more human they become.
Yeah, I mean, they can bleed. So
They can bleed, so it makes sense that maybe he would.
Yeah, he would, yes. And we don't see it necessarily...
We see it in silhouette.
We see it played out in silhouette.
The best line, like, she's like, wait, you got a rubber? It's like, look at me, I'm all rubber.
Have you got a rubber?
Have I got a rubber?
Yeah.
Tiff,
What?
look at me. I'm all rubber.
Which was totally improvised by
Yeah.
both Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif.
Yeah, because he said you saw a video of like when they recorded, they were in booths opposite each other.
Yes, so I don't know if they requested that or if it was just set up to be that way. I don't think it's common when you do voice acting though that you with your fellow actors.
No, you're not usually. Usually you're on your own.
But they were literally opposite each other. And Jennifer Tilly said in an interview that I don't know if there was dialogue for that scene or if it was just meant to be sort of inferred that they have sex, but she came up with that line. Brad Dourif came up with his line, and then there you go. There you go. But they actually delivered those. When you think about it, delivering those lines
Look at
opposite each other. Yeah, they must have had so much fun doing that. It's weird, but I mean, it's nothing compared to what we get in Seed.
No,
so I mean,
the fact that they go all out.
Oh yeah, they do. It's also like this weirdly, almost beautiful sequence of events.
It is, but after this point, inevitably it's only all start going wrong.
It goes downhill.
That like to get the reveal, like obviously our two main characters, Jesse and what's
Jade.
Jay. They're so forgettable. That's the problem. Even though they're married now, they're so suspicious. They've both called their mate David.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens to David in movies. He meets up with them and finally convinced, that they're both
innocent
until he looks under the chair, sees the blood and the pinhead kill from earlier.
Yeah, her uncle.
And he thinks that now. So he takes his gun and he's like, oh my God, like they're both psychopaths. And they're like, what's going on? Oh, God. And then that's when the dolls reveal themselves.
Yeah.
Pulled guns and they're right.
Nobody move.
He runs out on the road and just gets murked by a truck. And I'm like, yep,
yeah,
that is the destiny of most Davids in film.
Most Davids in
Yeah,
films.
we don't do very well.
He's also a bit of like not a waste of a character, I guess, but he's instantly a very forgettable character.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame. Like he has a purpose within the plot, but he's a plot device, is what I mean. Sorry, like his character is a plot contrivance, I think, to kind of speed things along.
Yeah, because the film does start moving quite rapidly now. Because all right, we need to go get a new vehicle. They basically decided they are going to still take them to the cemetery, but they are going to put themselves in their bodies.
In their bodies.
She even starts dressing her up, Jade up, like
yeah.
Tiffany loves Martha Stewart.
Tiffany does.
There's two things. She loves Martha Stewart, and she has so many lines that her mother say, my mother used to say.
Like my mother used to say.
If you're going to cook for a man, the least he can do is do the dishes.
Do the dishes. But the thing I love about this particular scene is that Chucky is actually loving married life.
He is. He's really into it.
He whispers to Jessie as they're driving, like, "Oh, if I'd have known it was going to be this wonderful, I'd have proposed to her years ago." He's actually secretly loving it. Like, she bakes him cookies and she does the meatballs. And
he's a bit of a mess.
He gives her a bit of a kiss on the cheek as well.
But our human characters kind of notice a way to try and
they're manipulating the
them.
situation.
He says, she's not much of a housewife looking over at the dishes. Oh, Tiff.
Those dishes aren't gonna wash themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Every time you get started on those dishes, and then Jade's like, least you can do is the dishes.
Yeah.
She just throws a fucking plate at him.
Throws the plate of cookies at him.
That's
or
all.
Something like
That's
that.
all it takes.
Yeah, like first major argument of
what
the
would
marriage.
Martha Stewart say? Fuck Martha Stewart.
Fuck Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart can kiss my shiny plastic butt. And she just goes off on an absolute rampage against him. She accuses him of like not being good in bed because he's got a tiny little doll dick, and then he accuses her of like, oh, it's hard for any man to get a rise out of you in bed.
Take it from me, honey. Plastic is no substitute for a nice hunk of wood.
Like, it's not easy.
What's the line she says about his dick? It's...
Oh, she turns to Jay, doesn't she? And she says something like, "Trust me, honey, like a bit of plastic is no substitute for a good hunk of wood," or something like
Chucky's
that. Like, a shocked Chucky face is so brilliant.
He has so many shocked faces in this, and like, again, I always go back to the design of Chucky in this. I love it.
Yeah,
like, absolutely love it. Just the stitched together, the hair's like stapled back in place.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
It is brilliant. It just marks a new point in the franchise.
Yeah, and it all leads to this huge climax ultimately at the gravesite of Charles Leroy.
Jade fucking kicks Tiffany into the oven.
She does. She gets absolutely burnt to a crisp. Still survives, but clearly in like a lot of pain.
Yeah, bit of a showdown, but eventually, like, Tiffany's just kind of sick of Chucky at this point, and we do actually have a bit of a... They fight, they confront, they have a bit of a shovel fight, which I think Ed Gein reprised his role as Chucky for this one, because it's like head down, and it's like you could not have done it with puppets.
No,
it would have been absolutely impossible.
No,
it is a fun showdown. Chucky has a few moments of like, ugh, when he sees his own grave.
Yeah,
he gets like stuck in his own grave, and it's like, oh,
bit of a shudder.
Yeah.
But yeah, I going back to the whole Bride of Frankenstein thing. Obviously, there's lots of callbacks to it throughout the film. But similarly, in like with this ending, the ending of Bride of Frankenstein as well, is the bride rejects the monster.
Yeah, Chucky being. She even said she says Frankenstein's line, say, "Chucky, we belong dead."
We belong dead. It's her that says it.
Yeah, she says it rather than Frankenstein saying it.
Yeah, the creature says it.
She's realised that because of how fragile their relationship is, and how these other two characters do clearly love each other.
Well, that's
She now can't bring herself to destroy this.
No,
and she realizes that Chucky he will never change.
No.
Oh, Chucky, look at us. Don't you see? We belong dead. Goodbye, darling.
Because he instantly betrays them at the closest opportunity. And he's like, of course he would.
My mother always told me love would set me free.
Because Chucky shoots her.
Because Chucky shoots her. And again, as weak as Jessie and Jade are, or as, not as interesting characters as they are, they do put up a fight, but also I like the idea of having a parallel love story running throughout the film. And obviously it does serve a purpose because Tiffany's been observing these two throughout the course of the movie, and I think for the first time, she sees what true love is and what it's supposed to look like, and she knows that she's never going to get that from Chucky, and she's never even had it from Chucky, even when she fell in love with him. So yeah, the ending is actually quite it's very sweet. It's very sad because it's basically
Yeah.
this heartbroken woman who has to she sacrifices herself basically because she knows she's never going to get the love that she needs from the man that she wants.
It's tragedy, just like Bride of Frankenstein.
We belong dead.
We belong dead.
Yeah.
And Chucky's gunned down like he usually is.
Yeah. I'll be back. I'll always come back.
That is it's a great moment. It's like,
yeah, but dying is such a bitch.
It's
Go ahead and shoot. I'll be back. I always come back. Yeah, but dying is such a bitch.
well, that's like every slasher film ever. Like the bad guy is always killed or might have an eye open at the beginning, but it's always defeated. But they always have to go through pain. But they do always come back.
They do always come back, and he knows it.
Be back.
Yeah.
This is like he's basically just dies next to his skeleton.
Yeah.
But the movie don't end there.
The movie does not end there.
Also, those characters we have never seen Jesse and Jade since.
No, we have
And I
not.
know Don he said he's never had any discussions about bringing them.
No, I don't think we need to. It's like
The story's kind of done.
The story's done. A policeman arrives on the scene. He sees the dolls. He sees them talking.
He sees Chucky alive.
So he instantly knows that Jesse and Jade were telling the truth, that they're not guilty. So presumably they're just allowed to go off scot-free,
Yeah.
enjoy being married, I
But
guess.
he checks out the Tiffany doll and
Who's looks dead, is presumed to be dead, until she opens her eyes, starts screaming, body starts writhing, clearly in pain, and pushes out a little doll baby.
has little teeth and instantly attacks
And attacks.
this cop.
Yes. That's how that movie ends.
That is the end of Bride of Chucky. That's it. I think we both have the same rank. Because I know we usually rank them. I think being before the end, this is the superior film out of the two of them. It just is.
I do. Oh yeah, I think Bride for me ranks really, really high. I know we were saying earlier about the genre switch up, and this is something that we talk about constantly when we talk about Chucky, is how Mancini is constantly pushing boundaries of genre and introducing different genres. And weirdly as well, like I've told you about this, the Chris Nolan interview that he had, totally different franchise, different genre. But when he was talking about the Dark Knight trilogy, and when Batman Begins came out, and it was a big success, obviously, and then they got the green light to do a sequel, and he said, instantly there was a lot of pressure to deliver something that was bigger and better than what he'd done before. But he said that he never really viewed it that way, because his way around that was not to try and do something to outshine Batman Begins, but to do something that was different to Batman Begins. So in Chris Nolan's mind, his Batman trilogy, they're three connecting films, obviously, but they are three different genres. So he's, Batman Begins to him is a coming-of-age film. The Dark Knight is a
crime film.
Is a crime thriller heist film, and then Dark Knight Rises is almost like an apocalyptic war movie. So that, in his mind, that's how he was able to do it. He didn't try and outdo the previous films. He just tried to switch it up a bit. Yeah. And I think that Mancini
he said a similar thing he said he wanted Seed of Chucky to be as different from Bride as Bride was from Free.
Yeah, and it couldn't be more different.
But he's also behind the director's chair this time.
In Seed of Chucky he is, yeah. He rises to the occasion.
So yeah, Seed of Chucky.
Oh, Seed of Chucky.
I'll admit, alright, we will be spoiling bits from
I think we have
the TV series just because Seed's story has
there's
never been more relevant than is. I'll get to that a bit later. So yeah. It's 2004, because of Columbine, obviously a few years had to go by.
Yes.
To show how weird this movie is, the opening credits is CG, is all CG, and it's sperm going down towards the eggs. And
CG sperm.
CG sperm.
Doll sperm.
Doll sperm.
Yeah.
And we have Glenn. Well, at the beginning of the film, he's called Glenn.
We have Glenn.
Actually, he's not called Glenn. He's called Shitface.
Shitface.
Voiced by
Shitface.
Billy Boyd from Lord of the Rings.
Pippin from Lord of the Rings.
He was. Again, this is something you just have to kind of
Let's roll with it, guys.
He's picked up by some dickhead
who
at the cemetery, who then uses him to become a world famous ventriloquist. Takes him to London. A ventriloquist competition.
Apparently, there's a huge convention. Ventriloquism isn't that big in the UK.
Yeah, but he keeps having nightmares about. Unlike Chucky. They said like they could have easily done like the stereotypical thing with it, like have the doll just be like another killer. But they wanted to do something like really different. So he's a softie. He doesn't want to kill, but he keeps having dreams. But also, again, he has Made in Japan on his wrist.
Yes.
So he thinks his parents are Japanese.
Yeah, he sees himself as an orphan.
Yeah. In Hollywood, they are making a movie based on Chucky and Tiffany called Chucky Goes Psycho.
Chucky Goes Psycho.
Which is actually a reference to the fact that he tried to get Universal to do a crossover with Chucky and Psycho. Never happened, so this is the closest we get, and it's in the snow.
With your mind!
Chucky's broke again! This is bloody ridiculous!
There's almost a little bit of Silent Night Deadly Night going on in it.
A little bit, yeah, the image of Santa Claus.
And he sees something on the TV about the Chucky and Tiffany doll, as obviously his parents, he thinks they're alive, but he sees that Chucky has the Made in Japan on his wrist. He's never had that.
No.
He's never had that. Also, we know from Child's Play 2 that they were made in the States.
Yes.
We saw the factory.
Little bit of continuity.
Just got to roll with it. He's got the amulet.
Yes, Glenn has the amulet.
So early 2000s.
This whole film stinks of the early 2000s.
Yeah. Even having a rapper in a supporting role, like Halloween Resurrection, we have Redman as a director, himself.
As we go on, I'll talk a bit about the very dated references in the movie.
The weird setup is these are meant to, the dolls they are using
in the film
are meant to be, again, this wasn't clear. Because he goes to the States, to Hollywood, to track down his parents. Doesn't understand why they're not talking back to him when he finds them.
He finds them in the...
He reads this inscription that also wasn't on the back of the amulet the first time. That brings them back to life. So these they are the dolls. Why are the dolls being used to make a movie?
Yes, so this is... all right, so...
And also the designs, like they don't know what Tiffany would have looked like. So yeah, her outfit, she does look a bit different.
So to help, yes, her hair is different.
Yeah.
To help with
her outfit is different.
Yeah, to help with clarity. So yeah, if these are the exact same dolls that are now being used within this film, Chucky Goes Psycho, then we have to believe that they have recreated Tiffany from the charred remains at the end of Bride of Chucky. Which, first of all, why would they go to the effort of that? Second of all...
Why would they be allowed to do this?
Why would they even be allowed to do this? Like, surely just from a filmmaking point of view, it would make sense just to do it from scratch rather than,
they're animatronical in this, so they would have... It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, but you know what? It is what it is. These are the same dolls they're now being used as props in this film within a film. Yeah. And this film also happens to star... Jennifer Tilly in another bit of meta-ness.
He really wanted to have more of her in person because he's like, she's really funny. He didn't just want to restrict her to a voice role. So she plays herself, starring... Right. So Jennifer Tilly plays Jennifer Tilly, starring in Chucky Goes Psycho, voicing Tiffany, whilst also voicing Tiffany.
Yes. You got
that?
You got
yeah. Okay. As I said, we're in a post-Scream world now.
We are, guys, we are. And, the comedy is amped up a lot in Bride of Chucky, but here it goes to a whole new level. You have to just accept the ludicrousness of the situation.
Yeah. The bit, obviously, Glenn brings them back, and he's like, shitface.
Oh, I'm shitface.
So they call him Glenn. Well, Chucky thinks it's a boy. Tiffany thinks it's a girl.
Yes.
So they call Glenn and Glenda.
The doll...
They debate this a lot throughout the film.
Because...
You're going to be a real-life girl.
Boy.
At first sight, Glenn looks a bit androgynous, but he's also very kind of softly spoken. So both to Tiffany and Chucky, it's kind of indiscernible, the gender of the doll.
He's got no parts.
But they also reveal that, yes, there are no parts on Glenn. So that kind of further sort of...
Right, you gotta bear in mind, this is 2004.
This is 2004.
But this Glenn, he actually came from a film called Glenn Glenda, didn't it? Don Mancini was inspired by.
Yes, yeah. So, Glenn or Glenda, the film was made by Ed Wood. A lot of people might recognise that name. It was released in 1953, and the film is about the trans community and cross-dressing, and it was basically a very early feature film about exploration into transgender and acceptance of being transgender. The film, like most of Ed Wood's films, absolutely tanked But again, like a lot of Ed Wood's films, it's since become something of a cult classic. For those of anyone who's seen Ed Wood, the Johnny Depp movie, that film features quite heavily. I think in that film they're making it. Because that whole movie explores Ed Wood being a cross-dresser himself. So yeah, I think that's where I kind of recognised it from.
I didn't realise this until we watched it this time round.
But that's where they got the names from, of the doll. Yeah.
More. And so the plot of this film is basically they want to get into human bodies again. Tiffany wants to be Jennifer Tilly.
Yes.
The Jennifer Tilly character is desperately trying to make it in Hollywood to the point where this was very, like, it makes fun of her a lot, and apparently that's a lot of what she put in there.
Yeah.
And to the point it's really harsh on Jennifer Tilly.
Very self-deprecating.
Very self-deprecating.
Which is
so she
wonderful.
is borderline willing to sleep with Redman to be able to play the Virgin Mary in his film.
Yeah.
And so Chucky wants to become Redman. We don't get Chucky's going to be a bro this time. We've moved on from 91.
Oh yeah, we don't get a line like that.
At least we've moved on from that.
Yeah.
At this point. But now they've realised they also need a body for Glenn and Glenda.
But they do.
Whilst also debating what they are. Like, Tiffany decides she doesn't want to kill anymore. She wants to be a good example because she's a mum.
Yes.
Doesn't quite go that way.
No.
But Chucky wants to take his son out killing.
Yeah.
What's the name? The paparazzi. He's quite a famous actor, isn't he?
John Waters, he was a director. He was a cult filmmaker. Very openly gay throughout his whole career, and again made a lot of cult movies around like 60s and 70s, I think.
He also said he was a massive fan of Child's Play.
Well, Mancini wanted him for this role, didn't he?
He always said he wanted to be killed in a slasher film.
Yeah.
His death in this film, where Chucky takes Glenn, is
bonding.
The best.
Father-son bonding.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
There's two really good kills. That's the acid one on the face, and it looks brilliant. But is it Tony Gardner who's in the film?
He plays himself.
He plays himself, and he gets decapitated as he did all the animatronics on it.
Tony Gardner has long since been the VFX guy, the
special effects
guy. Sorry, on the Chucky franchise. So yeah, okay, he plays himself. He gets decapitated by Chucky and Tiffany.
That's what Glenn's just like. Oh my God, they're psychos.
Oh my God, they're psycho. Yeah.
Yeah. He speaks with a very British accent.
Yeah.
So it's a weird film. I appreciate it more watching this time round, but I'm not going to pretend that I think it's a good film. There's bits I like. There's a lot I don't. And this is the weird. So we had doll sex in the last one. Their plan is to inseminate Jennifer Tilly, get her pregnant so that Glenn and Glenda have a body to go into, rather than just finding a child.
So
we have a scene of, in the window, this is where paparazzi obviously come in. Chucky's just...
He's just having a nice time in the
bathroom. 17 puppeteers to jerk off Chucky.
To jerk Chucky off. But right before he commences with that, he turns to Tiffany and he says, well, you're not going to give me any...
Give me a hand?
Give me any inspiration here? And so Tiffany just peels back the dress, pulls down a little dress. And we just full on see doll boobies.
Yeah.
We just full on see them. And she's also anatomically correct.
Yeah.
Very detailed boobies.
The in-film Tony Gardner did a good job with that, apparently.
Absolutely batshit insane.
It's just... When Jennifer Tilly realises what's going on, that's just like, she just loses it. She is brilliant in this.
Yeah.
It's like, she's terrified by the dog because like, Tiffany's like, you gotta have some self-respect. It's like...
Yeah, just absolutely losing it, yeah.
And then she comes up to Chucky and says, what am I going to do with this? And just...
What am I supposed to do with this?
She's just gone.
She absolutely gone.
Yeah, so they artificially inseminate. It's so... when you break it... If this wasn't just being done with possessed dolls, because this similar scene was done in Don't Breathe. And it's creepy, it's terrifying, and it makes me sick to think about it. Why is it so funny in this one?
I think just...
I don't know. It's because it's dolls.
It's because of everyone involved. It's just absurd. The whole situation is just absolutely
But also mean that these children are biologically Chuckies.
Yeah, they are.
Jennifer Tilly becomes pregnant very quickly.
Baby grows at a very...
It's a supernatural baby.
Exponential rate.
Yeah, and... Alright. To the real meat and bones of this one, because the plot of this is kind of all over the place. To me, Chucky takes too much of a back seat.
He does.
A lot of the kills are off screen, and that's kind of like where my issue with it is. Like, yeah, like even to an extent, Glenn Glenda is a side character. This again is more of Tiffany.
It's definitely more Jennifer Tilly's movie.
Yeah,
I noticed that this time.
But
around.
Chucky is so far in the background of this one. I will say, animatronics-wise, their faces move incredibly.
Yeah.
There's some weird VFX with them on green screen running.
Just the character himself.
Yeah. At one point, Chucky goes up to talk to Tiffany, thinking that she's broken her rules. She's killed. Well, it's not Tiffany.
It's Glenda.
It's Glenda dressed as Tiffany.
The personality of Glenda.
This is when we realize my issue with the film is that this part of the story, you can see it leading up to it, but also it's not center point enough for such a complex and important storyline for this character. Glenn and Glenda have split. Their personalities are completely different now. You have Glenn, who is the timid male side of the personality.
Yeah.
And you have Glenda, the female, violent, essentially the Chucky side of it. They are very, very different people.
Yeah.
And when you switch between the two, but we don't get enough time with that. We see a little bit of the struggle, but not enough. That's why I just think this movie it's trying to do too much.
Well, I think when you really break it down, so Seed of Chucky, it is a horror film. It's comedy as well. It is a bit of a commentary on gender and queerness, maybe to an extent as well. It's also a commentary on the Hollywood system. You know, you think about the whole subplot of Jennifer Tilly having to seduce a director to be in his fucking ridiculous film about the Virgin Mary anyway.
Yeah.
It's a thing about the casting
She has a line about losing out to Julia Roberts because she slept with the director, then her assistant is Jennifer. No, that's not true. That was added in. They added that in afterwards.
Yeah, because they couldn't, just in case Julia Roberts decided to sue Seed of Chucky for defamation.
There's a weird line as well where Chucky Tiffany are just in bed watching telly and it's like, oh, they're executing Martha Stewart today.
I know, she gets it so wrong. They're executing Martha Stewart.
They're executing Martha Stewart this morning.
I don't think I could take 9 months of this shit.
It's just
I love
the
that
way...
they're just in bed with their little family life.
Well, this in many ways, this is a family drama.
It is.
In many ways. Like, Bride of Chucky was a romance. This is now the continuation of that, where they are a fucked up family, basically.
But the reveal of Glenn Glenda being, obviously, essentially a split personality.
A split personality.
A split gender.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's cool, but again, it's like, I just don't think enough time is given to it when it's also trying to do all those other things that you...
I agree with you.
Was the Hollywood side of it needed? Would this story have been enough? But then also would because initially Universal deemed this movie as too gay.
Yeah.
And, fans were not happy with this film. I have to admit, when I watched this film when I was younger, didn't like it. Watching it through 2022, 2023 eyes, I can appreciate a lot more of what they're trying to do. Still doesn't make it a good movie. But Universal wanted nothing to do with this movie afterwards. Like, in Curse of Chucky, there's meant to be a reference to Glenn and Glenda. It was cut. Wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
So, this is the spoilers for the TV series. Glenn and Glenda are directly referenced in season 1, which when I watched with you, I said how massive that was, considering they hadn't been seen since 2004.
Yeah.
Let alone directly referenced. In season 2, they are a character.
Oh, yeah.
So at the end of the movie, they successfully do what they need to do. So we quickly get through the end of the movie before we can deal with the themes. Jennifer Tilly does successfully transfer herself into... Tiffany does become Jennifer Tilly.
Well, Jennifer Tilly also successfully gives birth.
Yes.
But to not one, but 2 babies.
Yeah, so they decide that, we can have both. We can have a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
Chucky suddenly decides that, this is my favourite Chucky moment in the film. He decides, he doesn't want to be human. I'm Chucky, the killer doll.
And I dig it.
I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history, and I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky, the killer doll, and I dig it.
to us, because every film before this point has been about Chucky wanting to get out of this doll's body, and this is the first 5 films in. He's finally like, you know what?
I'm just going to embrace it.
I'm just going to embrace it. And
I'm going to embrace it because
I really like that as a Chucky moment.
I love that too. But Tiffany sort of stares at him like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
She's like, "We're done."
Yeah,
like,
because she says, "I want to be Jennifer Tilly." She's got her heart set on it. She wants
a family.
She wants a family. She wants her child to be able to live in the body of a human or two.
It's like at this point, Chucky kind of remembers he's the main character. He's like, nobody leaves me.
Yeah.
Nobody leaves me. Nobody.
Yeah, because she does officially break up with him.
And he's not happy.
He is not happy at all about that. So now we're in the hospital.
Yeah. I'm trying to get through it.
Yeah, we're in the hospital. She's she's safe. Jennifer Tilly is safe, presumably. The babies are safe for now. Tiffany still wants to transfer her soul into Jennifer Tilly's body. Glenda is there as well. Chucky is also there. There's an axe fight. And it ends with Chucky going down.
I think it's meant to be a big thing that Glenn, the timid one, is the one that actually wants to kill Chucky. But do we spend enough time with either of the he has a weird kung fu fight because he also learned karate because he thinks he was Japanese.
Yeah. Chucky takes down Tiffany, and then in retaliation and anger, Glenda takes down Chucky.
No, it is Glenn that takes down Chucky.
It's Glenn.
It's specifically Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn takes down Chucky.
You proud of me now, Daddy? Are ya?
Nice
Puts
little
up all his
Chucky.
limbs.
Chucky is very proud of him in this moment.
Attaboy.
He's very proud.
Yeah.
Tiffany is now Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
Glenn and Glenda has been split into both babies, Glenn and Glenda.
Yeah.
Just like the doll forms, Glenn is very timid. But it cuts forward the house several years, and the housekeepers want to quit because basically Glenda's a psychopath.
Glenda is a little tearaway. Yeah.
Again, the movie just feels like it's trying to put so much in there. But what can be confusing for that would be if we were just doing it on that. If season 2 of the TV series hadn't came out, this video could end here. But now they actually do appear grown-ups in their 20s in
series 2.
In series 2, they are main characters. And it gets a bit complicated.
Yes.
Because we had a long debate on how we were even going to articulate this.
Oh, I mean,
without offending everybody.
Well, not even that. It's just it's
complicated.
It's messy. It is very complicated. I was confused when I was watching series 2 because I had seen Seed. In fact, Seed of Chucky was the very first Chucky film I ever saw, but it wasn't fresh in my mind. So I was constantly having to ask
because before I convinced you to rewatch them, you weren't a fan of them, and I understand if that's the only one that you'd watched.
For some reason, Seed of Chucky was the very first film I watched.
Because nothing in that film makes sense if you've not seen Bride.
I think it was probably around the time it came out. I would have been about 10, and I was like, "This is Chucky. This is the Chucky franchise." No, I'll take a pass on that. I actually do really like Seed. We'll talk a bit more about what we think about it at the end, but So series 2, it brings back Glenda. And so, right.
What's the name of the actor?
Lachlan Watson, who is a non-binary actor.
They are fantastic.
Yeah, they're absolutely
I was
brilliant.
most familiar with them from Sabrina, the Netflix series, which I believe they came out as non-binary during that show.
Yeah. So I think it was a bit confusing for us rewatching Seed because we've not long come off the back of watching series 2 of Chucky.
Yeah, I just want to compliment series 2. Again, minus one. You do see the Glenda doll in the series 2.
Yeah.
We'll not say what happens to all the characters, but the show managed to make me feel nostalgic for that doll, even though it's I'd only watched Seed once and I didn't like it. But I saw that doll and I was like, I kind of want to rewatch Seed now.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite an achievement.
I do want to talk about that.
They brought back these characters that were literally banned by Universal, and this is the part of Seed that I think was just a little bit ahead of its in terms of gender. It was ahead of its time. The film might be a bit of a mess, doing too much, but the themes it's trying to portray and the message it's trying to get across, ahead of its time.
Well, yeah.
And they just didn't know what to do with this film.
You think... I was trying to look out for it, but when rewatching Seed of Chucky, the word trans is not mentioned once, because I don't think it was I don't think transgender, I could be wrong in this, but I don't think it was a term, like, you know,
No,
20 plus years ago. But even if it was, it's not used in the film. Seed of Chucky is absolutely dealing with a lot of themes that, you know, now can be a lot more accepted and articulated.
Yeah. I know, but you said you were researching that a lot of the trans community do like Sleepaway Camp. They do actually quite like this film, especially considering Dom Mancini himself is not trans. It's never played for jokes. He does it very respectfully.
No, that's the thing. Like the gender side of it and the queerness side of Seed of Chucky is not. It's never the butt of the joke. It's like, yes, potentially it's not extrapolated on very well. It's not maybe articulated in the most like sophisticated style.
It was 2004.
But it is 2000. It's a 2004 horror, which was a very topsy-turvy time for horror anyway. So I mean, I think for the most part, people appreciate what was done. And Seed of Chucky is no one's favourite Chucky film, but I mean, yeah, you've got to appreciate that he was ultimately dealing with themes and ideas that hadn't really been explored before. And I think I might be right in saying as well that, to my knowledge anyway, Seed of Chucky is the first time that the character dealing with gender identity and confusion isn't the bad guy.
Yes.
You know, Chucky is the raging psychopath here. And, you know, he's also the one that doesn't want his kid to have a split personality. He doesn't want his kid to be gender confused. He wants a boy. He wants a son. But the one that's actually going through that crisis is actually the sweetest character probably in the whole film, the most innocent character in the whole film. So I think that was a first as well. You know, turning that stereotype
when he's having
on its
dreams
head.
about killing people and stuff like that, and they're fictional dreams.
Yeah.
That I also see that is Glenda. Glenda is trying to come out.
Glenda is
at the time was the dominant personality, and Glenda has been trying to force her way out because she wants to exist as well.
Interestingly too, we touched on it that there are quite a few references.
I suppose because he has a twitch, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
That's usually the sign that he's going to like
turn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of references to Psycho throughout Seed of Chucky, obviously. Chucky goes psycho. There's a line at the beginning with Glenn where there's a fly that goes into his little cage where he's being kept. And he's like, oh, I wouldn't even hurt a fly.
I wouldn't even hurt a fly. Oh, there he goes. Back to his family.
Which is obviously a famous line.
Oh, you follow up? There he goes.
There he goes. And then there's, you know, in his dream sequence at the beginning, he envisions killing a woman in the shower. Again, obviously a very blatant reference to Psycho. And when you Google trans horror or trans characters in horror, Psycho is one of the first ones that comes up. Now, I would argue, again, you know, I'm not an expert on this, I would argue that Psycho is not a trans horror at all. It's like, yes, obviously Norman, he dresses up as his mum when he's going through that, again, you know, similar split personality phase, but he's not a trans character. He doesn't go through gender identity a crisis Norman, necessarily.
He's a cis male. He is.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. I don't know. There's different opinions on it, but yeah, I would argue that it isn't to an extent, whereas Seed is.
Yeah. So do you want to go in what confused us upon rewatching this after watching season 2 of
so Chucky? We very recently watched season 2 and then jumping back into Seed. So obviously at the end of Seed, the Glenn personality goes into the little boy baby that is born. The Glenda personality goes into the little girl baby that is born. And then we fast forward a few years later in the film where they're about 5-6 years old and they're celebrating their birthday in what's very clearly Romania, not Hollywood, but that's a side thing anyway. And anyway, it's clear that Glenn is a little boy. Glenda is a little girl. Then when you watch season 2 of Chucky, which admittedly was many years later,
Lachlan plays both roles.
Lachlan plays both roles. Now Lachlan,
it took me a while to realise that. Yeah. I honestly thought they'd cast twins at first when I didn't realise who it was, and that's how good
actress.
That's how good she is. In that. That's how good she is as both these roles.
They are.
They are.
Yeah. So what was I saying?
So when I first was introduced to this actor, they were going as she. So that's what keeps confusing me.
So what bit did I just get up to there? They are playing both Glenn and Glenda. Now, I think what confused me was it's played by Glenn Glenda is played by the same actor. Whereas Seed of Chucky, you've got a little boy and a little girl. I think ultimately it is just something that we have to overlook.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, Glenn was born into a cis male body, and then at some point as they've been growing up, they've realised non-binary, gender fluid. So I think ultimately what's happened is Don Mancini cast Lachlan Watson, thought they were absolutely brilliant for the role. So it's something that we're just meant to overlook.
Yeah. So
Glenn is still like the male counterpart, biologically still male, was born cis male, but played by a non-binary actor.
Yeah, because in that cart, their life split is like they/them, isn't it? So the way I interpreted it is as the character, they may have been born into their male and female bodies, and that might have been how these two characters. But I think trying to get deep into this here, because they are actually the same person.
Yeah.
Like they are two sides of the same coin. I think as they've gotten older, they've obviously, because of casting non-binary actors, both characters are non-binary.
Yeah.
Could that be seen as they've gotten older, they've slowly just moved away from the gender identities? Because that's fair.
Maybe.
Chucky and Tiffany picked for them to go into a male and a female body.
Yeah.
As they've gotten older, have they moved away from them, closer towards what they were as a single being?
Yeah, maybe.
Because they are both linked. They know this. They're not normal, but they don't know. They don't remember being a doll.
Yeah.
So that's how I would kind of like rationalize that as they've gotten older, they've gotten closer to the Glenda.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Gigi is what they get.
Gigi.
So that's how I would logically explain that away.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I think, has just come down to the fact that they've picked a non-binary actor for it who was great for the role.
Wanted them to play both parts. I mean, I questioned it again. I didn't look into it, but I have no idea if Don Mancini initially did want, a male and a female to play the twins in series 2, met Lachlan Watson and just thought they were fantastic, going to cast them as both. I don't know if that was intended or not. Or
you might have just had a particular story with a non-binary actor in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was particularly kind of confusing for us because we've just come off the back of watching season 2, so it was very much in our minds. And then it is a bit confusing. What's also confusing to me, and like few spoilers for season 2, is why back in The Doll he starts talking in a British accent again. Like they start talking in a British accent. That is also confusing, not explained. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I suppose like when they're back together, they might then have the memories they had as a doll.
Potentially. Yeah.
Like I said, the events of Seed. The reason obviously we have to talk about this because the events of Seed are now more relevant because they've not been mentioned before.
No.
Before the TV series again, and I think it does mean you have to look at Seed with new eyes, with fresh eyes. Like I said, I still don't think this is a good movie. The stuff I really like in that I like Chucky and Tiffany are still so much fun. There's some good kills. Jennifer Tilly is a lot of fun. Redman serves a purpose.
Yeah.
He's funny in the roles that he's in, but he just serves a purpose. But to me, I still rank this.
It's the lowest for you.
I think it's the lowest for me. It might occasionally might jump up one, but Bride on the other hand, going back to obviously the previous one, that is in my top 3.
Yeah.
And those 3 also rotate
a
lot. So it's like my top 3 is always like 2, Bride and Curse.
Yeah.
But my bottom 2 is like Seed and Colt, and they can move around every now and then.
See, I think Seed of Chucky, it's not perfect, but it is the perfect bridge connecting the Chucky films before it and everything that came after.
Yeah.
You can definitely split Chucky into the before and the after of Seed of Chucky. Yeah. And I think series 2, obviously, yes, we have the return of Glenn and Glenda, so there's a direct connection to Seed. But I also just think series 2 brings back a lot more of like the flamboyancy and like the absurdity that we see in Seed. Because we didn't really see that in Curse. We didn't really see that much in Cult. Because we do see it in season 2.
Yeah, season 1 of Chucky is very much following on from the events of Curse and Cult, and it follows a lot of the similar themes. Season 2, to me, like it is a sequel to Seed.
Yeah, definitely.
It's more related to that
Yeah.
than it is to the events of Curse and Cult without spoiling the entire series.
Yeah.
You get what I mean by that?
I totally get what you mean by that, yeah.
Well, that's the joy of this is one long story. I'm just glad that the franchise has found it at a point where it can address these events. And essentially, he's used season 2 to tell that story better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Not a great movie.
It's not a great movie.
But I appreciate it. And rewatch it, I did enjoy it more this time than I thought I would.
I also just wanted to say as well that, this was made in 2004, like we said. And even though this is, the fifth entry in a franchise at this point, even though this is a franchise that goes back to the 80s, Seed of Chucky to me feels the most dated of all.
It does. It is very
films.
dated.
And I think it's like, it has that early 2000s kind of aura about it. It's really hard to define and articulate it, but if you watch it, you'll see what I mean. Obviously, a lot of the references, like, Redman. I mean, like, who's heard of Redman since 2004? Let's be honest. Yeah. We have Hannah's Spirit in the movie. Yeah, any S Club fans? I mean, like, immediately dates the film. There's an Anna Nicole Smith reference. We get Britney Spears in the film.
Not played by Britney Spears,
but a Britney Spears like cameo.
Oops, I did it again.
Yeah, it's great line from Chucky when he rides up and he says, "Oops, I did it again."
I did it again.
I just thought, do you think the surviving characters in 4 sold their story and that's how they know what the doll is?
Potentially.
That's the only reason I can logically. But again, there's incomes. You've just got to roll.
We have to roll with it.
We're 5 films into this possessed killer doll story. You just got to roll. With it.
I would say it's tricky with Chucky because it is, as you were saying, it's one long continuous story. So if I was ever going to recommend Chucky to someone that's fresh into it, I would say just watch it from the beginning and go with it. But even if this wasn't a connecting franchise, I would never say to someone, "Oh, start with Seed."
No, why did you start with Seed? That's just
I don't
madness.
know. I think it just my mum was probably watching it, and I just caught a bit of it.
I'm partially jumping in what next. I think you could start with Curse though.
Yeah, maybe you could start with Curse. Seed of Chucky is batshit insane. It is a little bit overcomplicated.
Crowded.
It is quite crowded. Who is the main character in the movie ultimately? But I do appreciate that. For a long while, this was probably the outlier in the entire franchise. But for those of people who have seen Series 2 or even haven't seen Series 2, we get a nice little connection, basically. So we see these characters again.
Yeah.
And it becomes a lot more... It's more easy to make sense of in Series 2.
Yeah. And Bride of Frankenstein is just a fun ride.
Yeah.
Again, not the best film in the franchise, but God, its downfalls I'm willing to overlook because I always know when I put it on that I'm going to have a really good time.
Bride of Chucky. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys.
That was a lot.
That was a lot. We thought this would be shorter because we're only doing 2 films for this chapter. So our next chapter will be The Curse of Chucky and The Cult of Chucky, and that will take us to the end of the films. I reckon we'll do one on the remake at some point.
Yeah.
But for the current timeline, films-wise, we'll be up to date then.
Yeah.
Friday one is coming.
Yeah, it is.
The last Friday video is coming. But yeah, it's a Bride of Frankenstein. It's a bit of a slasher classic. Like this is the the look of Chucky alone.
Bride of Chucky.
Did I say Bride of Frankenstein? The look of Chucky in that film is just almost as iconic as Chucky himself.
It is. It's so much fun.
Yeah. We will see you next week.